Bob Driscoll with us, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General under President George W. Bush. First to this speech that we're waiting for, there's always this balance, right, between what Trump's lawyers want him to say, which any criminal lawyer would tell you, don't say anything about the case, and what Trump, the politician, wants to say. At some point, is there anything he can say about this documents case that isn't kind of already been said or baked in?
It would be hard at this point, but you can always do more damage. I mean, his attorneys have got to be nervous. He's given interviews.
But really, like, at some point, when you say his attorneys have got to be nervous about what? He's on tape talking about classified documents. You're going to go after the prosecutor, Jack Smith, which he's already done.
He could talk about specific instances you may want to dispute at trial. He could talk about specific conversations with people. He could confirm things that the government only has from other sources. All those things can happen. And so, I mean, the attorneys have to realize that he's got larger ambitions. They're going to have to work within what he wants to do, which may not be the best for his legal case, but he's proven that's the way he is, and he's going to be the one that's in charge.
The one thing I think was most interesting about the indictment was the idea that the indictment relied on statements from Trump's lawyer.
Right.
And the government was able to pierce attorney-client privilege, which is going to be an enormous question as to whether that becomes admissible in court, and considering how much of the indictment's based on it. It's something he's going to talk about tonight. He's sort of as he has his long list of grievances. One of them is going to be piercing attorney-client privilege, and he's talked about that before. Does he have a point?
Yeah, I mean, I think he does have a point in that. I mean, at the broadest sense, you want those conversations privileged because it encourages people to be honest with their attorneys. And so some of the things he said are things every client says, which is, if I don't do this, what happens? If I don't comply, what happens? Those are very common questions. Now, the reason the crime fraud exception exists is because if you use your attorneys in the commission of a crime, courts can pierce the attorney-client privilege and get that testimony. But it should happen very rarely, and it's very high standard. And I'm sure his lawyers now will challenge it to try to keep that evidence out. And, you know, it seems like the government thinks they have a good reason to pierce it, and they may. But I think anyone who does what I do for a living is very concerned whenever courts pierce the attorney-client privilege, because then the risk is clients aren't going to tell you the whole truth to begin with. Right. All of us say, tell us everything. It's the only way we can.
Well, right. And as you think about various sort of rights that exist, the idea of an attorney-client privilege is pretty high up there.
Right.
And the standard to pierce it has to be pretty high. It's interesting when you think about Donald Trump's relationship with attorneys. You know, he was sort of formed and went through life in the early years with Roy Cohn in New York, who was sort of this infamous political fixer, who was ruthless in the way he dealt with cases and sort of taught Trump this bare knuckles brawling. That's one way. I think is that J. Edgar Hoover that he's with?
Yeah.
Or no, it's not Hoover. Senator from Wisconsin.
McCarthy.
What I'm wondering though is, at some point, it's fine when you're doing that and you're trying to get NDAs from porn stars and for bad behavior and on and on and on. That, when you're dealing with federal prosecutors, is a different set of rules, is it not?
It is. I think on civil cases, and Trump's shown this through his real estate career, litigation is oftentimes about leverage. Most cases don't try. It's about bluster. It's about putting pressure on the other side, making them spend money, and then eventually you resolve the case because it's too expensive to keep going. And that can be a successful strategy, especially if you're the party with more financial resources. That works well in civil court. The attack can work criminally, but it's one of those, if you come at the king, you better kill the king situations, because you're not doing yourselves any favor by getting antagonistic with the prosecutor. And so at the end of the day, there's going to be a verdict, and you may not like what it is, because it's unlikely. It's not like there's going to be a civil settlement agreement like there is on a lease dispute.
Right. Yeah. You are not going to beat the Department of Justice into submission. Right. Bob Driscoll, thank you very much. We can continue watching the pictures. Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find NewsNation on your television provider. And don't forget to subscribe. Click the red button to get more of NewsNation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.